whether we don't empathise with it, yeah? Whether we think it's crazy to worry about, saving the planet, which is unfortunately what a lot of people think. The right hemisphere works with the left and does not seek mastery over it. So this is an interesting thing. The left brain wants to dominate the right brain, but the right brain will work with the left brain. So the right brain cooperates. The left brain is much more, I'm not going to use the word aggressive, but it does want to create its own sphere of control. And if the right brain gets in the way, it will close it down. It will stop it. It will silence it. It will even kill it if it's Palestine, right? So enough of my ranting. Let's go to this. Interestingly, this video here that I'm about to share with you, Chomsky and Herman's propaganda model, is made by Al Jazeera. It's made by Al Jazeera English. It's very, very clear. What it's going to present to you, there are 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, whoops.
Sorry.
That's all right. There are 5 filters of, you've ruined our video now, but we're going to have to start again, aren't we?
No.
So there are 5 filters in Western mass media that shape our attention. And you may think, well, I know that, or you may think, oh my God, I never knew that. It was unconscious. Okay, so let's see what you think about this.
This simple yet brilliant trick to heat your home in 90 seconds will save thousands of pounds on your heat.
Propaganda. Many use the word when talking about countries like North Korea, Kazakhstan, Iran. Countries viewed as authoritarian through the lens of the Western media. Press freedom, freedom of thought. People use those terms when talking about countries like the United States, France, Australia, democracies. In 1988, Noam Chomsky co-authored a book with Edward Herman called Manufacturing Consent. It blasted apart the notion that media acts as a check on political power.
Okay, just to try and keep everybody on the same page, there might be 1 or 2 people that are not clear what manufacturing consent means. What does consent mean?
Like agreement.
Agreement. Yes, so we're talking about political agreement, aren't we? So we use the expression in English, status quo. So when we use the media, in particular news media, what we are often led to believe is that this is an accurate political representation of the reality of what's happening in the world, in our country or overseas. So our consent is manufactured. Manufactured means constructed. The media, the purpose of the media is to construct your political agreement. And in political terms, it means to say our media is democratic, even though it's not. Okay? And we'll come back to that next week.
That media inform the public, serve the public, so that we can better engage in the political process. In fact, media manufacture our consent. They tell us what those in power need them to tell us, so we can fall in line. Democracy is staged ever pay. So who fills the gap? Advertisers.
This, by the way, will be our lecture in 3 weeks' time, advertising. So how many of you, maybe it's common sense, but you probably knew that if you want to start your own media company, like Al Jazeera, let's use it as an example in Qatar. So the Emir of Kuwait basically owns Al Jazeera. Why? Because he's a oligarch, he's a billionaire, and he pays for it. So yes, it can be good, but it's very, very, very expensive. And what happens is that the advertising fills the gap. But that advertising that allows big media companies to function also play a very big political constraint, and that's what most people don't realise. Yeah? So what I'm even suggesting here, shocking as it may be, it's not true that there's no independent media, but there's less and less and less independent media. Most media is owned by very rich people who want to make money, or very politically motivated people that want to get you to think in a certain way to support a political party. That's called propaganda. Yeah? There is very little independent media. Now, I'm not suggesting that independent news media in particular, I'm not suggesting that's easy, because we've all got political biases, but it's just note that there is, in the world today, we, you and me, are all dependent on non-independent media. Yeah? And that's shaping how we attend to the world. I will introduce you to one particular journalist in a couple of weeks called John Pilger, who was amazing. He may not be, unfortunately just died, but he was old, and he made some amazing independent documentaries, and he was a foreign correspondent, so he did show that it was possible to be independent as a journalist, and it is possible, it's just hard.
And what are the advertisers paying for? Audiences. And so it isn't so much that the media are selling you a product, their output. They're also selling advertisers a product, you. How does the establishment manage the media? That's the third filter. Journalism cannot be a check on power.
Just want to focus on the notion that you and I are products. Did you catch what it said? What do you think that means? Are you a product? Pardon?
Product information, like individual one, and instead of the gain acquire the information, you have to submit or you have to give them your information.
Right, so remember last week I talked about monetization and the attention economy. So social media particularly turns us into products because we, as objects, as economic units, are sold as audiences to advertisers. So we do get used as products. Our data, remember what I said last week at the end of the lecture about hacking and the great hack. Yeah? This is what's happening through our social media and our phones and so on and so forth, is that we are all, with algorithms, we're all being used, left brain, used as economic units. That's the bad news. The good news is, if you're aware of it, you can change it. That's the good news. Yeah? There's danger with the political economic approach, and I feel it's very inappropriate for me to criticize Noam Chomsky, because he's like up there somewhere. But I have had this conversation with him by email, now I'm really showing off. And he and I could not agree what objectivity was. So for me, as a younger man, relative to him, I do feel that objectivity is something that you historically negotiate. But he has this very enlightenment-based idea that objectivity is a scientific principle and it never changes. So anyway, what I'm inviting you to think about is, yes, try to understand how powerful the political economic approach is, but then you'll see from Stuart Hall and McGilchrist that it's more complex. Exactly. Because you have a role to play. So the danger of the political economists is that they think, as left-wing theoreticians, they think we're outside of power. Power is too big. We can't challenge power. No, that's what power wants you to think. Right? If everybody, I know this is mad and a bit Marxist, if everybody understood power better, then they could take power and they could insist, and we could all protest and we could insist that the people that represent us are democratic and they do what we think is best for the planet, not what they think is best for the planet. It's still possible. It's not too late. So if you start to feel depressed, always tell yourself it's not too late.
Because the very system encourages complicity. Governments, corporations, big institutions know how to play the media game. They know how to influence the news narrative. They feed media scoops, official accounts, interviews with the experts. They make themselves crucial to the process of journalism. So those in power and those who report on them are in bed with each other. If you want to challenge power, you'll be pushed to the margins. Your name won't be down. You won't be getting in. You've lost your access. You've lost the story. When the media, journalists, whistleblowers, sources,
This is so true that if you are an independent journalist and you challenge power, people won't want to talk to you. You won't be broadcast. But as audiences, if we demand independent journalism, then we'll get it. It is there, yeah? But don't rely on mainstream corporations, media corporations, to for the real information that's going to challenge power. You're just going to get the same old story about everything's okay, don't change anything. You know, that's how power works. I'm slightly mindful of
stray away from the consensus, they get flat. That's the fourth filter. When the story is inconvenient for the powers that be, you'll see the flat machine in action, discrediting sources.
This has happened to
trashing
Julian
stories,
Assange.
and
This has
diverting
happened to
the
Noam
conversation.
Chomsky, right? Noam Chomsky doesn't get interviewed by mainstream
To
journalists
manufacture
because
consent,
he has the
we
truth.
need
Remember when he talked about Martinez? What is it that the media is afraid of? It's afraid of truth.
communism, terrorists, immigrants, a common enemy, a boogeyman to fear helps corral public opinion. 5 filters, 1
Common enemies, who are they right now? Terrorists, Islam, Palestinians, protesters, communists. Yeah? Activists. These are constructed in the media as the problem. If we go, just focusing on Julian Assange, because as I said, hopefully during this course, we'll be able to watch this new amazing documentary called The Trustful about Julian Assange. Actually, I'm talking to the production company by email now, and I'm hoping to put a screening on in SOAS of this film. I'm hoping, I don't know if it will work. But the point about Julian Assange, he has released lots of anonymous, factual journalism about Western corporate and political corruption. Masses. He's in prison. The information should be putting the politicians and the corporate criminals in prison. The world is upside down. Yeah? And you don't have to be a Marxist to say that. You don't have to be some mad person. It's actually quite sane, it's quite rational. Anyway, I think we'll go to the next model now, which is Stuart Hall. Anybody heard of Stuart Hall already? What do you know? Oh, of course you have. Yeah. What do our culture students remember about Stuart Hall?
The shift from the elite kind of culture into the mass
what's really interesting about Stuart Hall is that he saw his country where he was born, Jamaica, it was colonized, and he was made to feel like an outsider with it in Jamaica, because in Jamaica his parents thought it was better to be white than black. And then he came to the UK and educated himself at Oxford, and he still felt like an outsider as a black man. So he has this really interesting perspective on Western culture, and he was very, very clever. So he doesn't necessarily disagree with the propaganda model, but he actually provides more complexity. What he says from our perspective as media scholars is, hey, we need to talk about audiences. Audiences are not just passive consumers. Audiences can be producers of power. Audiences are us. You know, we don't want to fall into the trap of thinking only clever people can understand the media. Of course, this is what education is all about, right? So let's watch the video.
And we're so conscious after this
We
media
live in a
wars
world
of like
saturated
everything
with
that happens.
media.
Yeah.
We see our reality through them, but these are not transparent operations. They mold the workings of power. Stuart Hall was an outsider, born in colonial Jamaica, educated in Oxford. He was out of place in both. He left academia, the literary canon, high culture, to become an intellectual of mass culture. What he did was controversial. He was looking at the power of mainstream media in representing race, gender, class, ethnicity, religion. Hall said those discourses are not innocent, that hidden in mass media is ideology. The media theory's job is to find the ideology, expose it, critique it. The media's racialization of crime, the patriarchal narratives on gender, the othering of immigrants, Muslims,
The poor and immigrants,
the media
another
are
enemy.
active agents in this
More
process.
enemies. Poor people are a problem. Immigrants are a problem.
But what of the masses? The audience is watching. Hall broke with the presumption that the masses are dumb, passive. In fact, he questioned who the faceless masses even are.
Because if I treated you like you were stupid, how would you
Some
feel?
may accept the dominant meanings embedded in the media.
Patronised.
Some may negotiate them. Others outright reject them. Where other media theorists argue that messages are imposed on people from above, Hall said power is not as simple as that. He saw pockets of resistance that undermine dominant media narratives. Think of the bloggers in Tunisia, the graffiti artists of Brazil. Black Lives Matter.
Oh, I've just got to say that it's just been triggered
But Hall
by
went further.
Brazil. Do you know that it's not a coincidence that South Africa and Brazil are the two main countries that are standing up to Israel? They're not Western. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
That is highly significant.
Yeah.
Yeah?
He also told us to seek out stories elsewhere, in the lowly, despised spaces of knowledge. The gossip mags, the soap opera, the music videos. If you want to understand society, then maybe avoid the news. Those
Except in this
formalised
class,
spaces
you
that
can't
have
avoid
no
schools, okay?
depth.
You can avoid it after the class, after the course.
Different perspectives, different realities.
Okay, so the time is 3:47. That gives us 8 more minutes. In that time, I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you guys may have about what I've said about these two media models. If not, if there's nothing, but if there are no burning questions or things that you want to say, we can start to take a look at the video, the McGilchrist video that I've posted on the difference between the left brain and the right brain models of attention. Does anybody have any questions? Anything you didn't understand?
I think my question relates to the last part,
Yeah,
which is about the left brain.
yeah.
Because you were talking about journalists who can be.
Can I answer with my left brain or my right brain? Which one?
You cannot choose. I think you can.
I have to use both.
But yeah. So I wasn't sure if I understood it right because you were mentioning that they're not being objective because of reason related to the left brain. Are they
Yes.
because they're
So
using-
I would argue, and I think McGilchrist would agree, that anybody who thinks that the way they think, the way they attend to the world, is aligned with something that's universally, neutrally, objectively true, yeah, is deluded. Yeah? Because the only thing we know about the objective perspective, and I mean this from science, I'm not just making a humanities argument, this is in science. The only thing we know is that it's the perspective of power that sees people